okay, maybe I have too much deal flow and not enough money, or I have too many deals and enough money and not enough contractors. And so it's always like this little Sudoku puzzle of how to put it all together and how to make it profitable for you.
What is up, beautiful people? We have with us Megan. I really should have asked you how you say your last name. Is it Ahern?
It's
Ahern. Megan Ahern. She's a real estate investor. I saw her Instagram. I thought she was super cool. This is episode 100 of Scorch the Fear. So we've finally done a 100 episode, guys. For those who've been longtime viewers, congrats. We've made it here. We've been doing 100 episodes, missed maybe 1 or 2 weeks in the past 2 years, I guess now. So yeah, Megan, welcome to episode 100 and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I didn't realize I was episode 100. That's fantastic.
You're episode 100. Yeah, no, it's a special episode. So real quick, just introduce yourself to my audience. Just tell them what you do, like what your career so far has been in real estate. Just give them like a real quick recap just so they know who you are.
Yeah, so I started investing in 2015 and have been investing since, full time since 2018, and we've bought about 70 properties, a little over that in the last 5 years. I'm also a realtor and I own a home staging company.
Love it. Awesome. So yeah, so real quick, just start with your fears, right? Like I told you this is how I always start every single one of these podcasts. What were your fears when you were just starting out in real estate investing? Like what were your fears? I feel like we have a lot of them as we were growing up as kids. That's where some of them originate from. What were your fears and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so I think when I was first getting started, even just down the learning journey, I had kind of a fear that my family, my friends would think that this was kind of like weird or a scam or like not possible, and just kind of push through on that. And then once, you're getting started, obviously you have the fear of losing money or the fear of it not working. And actually the first deal that I did, I lost 20 grand on my first flip. And so that was kind of settled in as a fear of,
no.
yeah. So that settled in as like, maybe that was something I should have been fearing more. But
okay, so how did you deal with that? I mean, that's really annoying, especially losing money on your first flip. I think most people who flip the first one, they lose money unless you partner with someone who's done tons and tons of flips, right? I feel like did you partner with anybody or did you just do it on your own?
no, I totally did it on my own. I found what I thought was a deal. It was like a long distance flip in Albuquerque. Never been to Albuquerque. And then put it under contract, tried to wholesale it and couldn't wholesale it, which should have told me that's not a good deal or else someone would have bought it, and just decided to flip it myself. And so it was a big learning curve there, and also just like education in general. I would pay $20,000 to learn how to flip, and I learned exactly what not to do on that deal.
I love it. So you went in head first, you're like, screw it, we're gonna do this flip. You lost 20,000. How did you recover from that, right? I mean, $20,000 is not a little amount of money. That is a lot of money. Like what did you have to do? What did you do to be like, you know what, we're going to keep pushing forward?
Right about the same time I had bought that flip, we had also bought a live-in flip in Southern California. And so I didn't realize yet that I was going to lose money on the Albuquerque house. So I think that momentum of just keep pushing forward kind of helped us to get over it, because once we realized that we were going to lose on the Albuquerque house, I had already started into a second deal and was realizing that I was going to make a lot of money on the second one. And so I could look at it from a holistic view and say, like, I might lose money over here, but I'm going to make money over here. And I can see in the long run that if you make more than you lose, like, you're still doing well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point, right? As long as you're making more than you lose, it doesn't really matter in the end.
Yeah, and it's just a numbers game. Like, even I lost money on a flip in September, and we lost like $17,000 on it, and it sucks when it happens, but you just kind of have to push forward and say, like, well, I've done 70 deals and I probably lost money on 4 of them, and so it's still fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good track record to do 70 deals and then only lose money on 4 of them, right? Like that's pretty freaking solid overall. So let's go back. Like, where did you even learn about real estate? Like, how did you even start getting into it?
So my grandparents were retired from commercial real estate. And so I recognized it as like, this is such a cool opportunity. I saw that they always had money and they never worked. So I wanted that, but they wouldn't teach me about it because they thought that landlording was absolutely terrible. I think they kind of didn't want their grandkids to get into it. So I went, to the internet and then was served up with an ad for a Rich Dad Poor Dad seminar and went to that. Paid like $30,000 to learn how to do it, which really just I feel like taught me enough to get me into trouble. And so yeah, when I failed on my first flip, I was actually already 50 grand in the hole between the education and the failed first flip.
And did that scare you at all? Oh, yeah. Did that scare you at all? Like the fact you were 50 grand in the hole, that's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Like to most people, that's like, ouch. So like, how are you feeling? I know you had the other flip and you at least thought you were going to make a lot of money, but how are you doing? Like, how are you doing emotionally? Like, were you okay? Like, were you freaking out? Were you like keeping it cool? Or are you just a calm, subtle person? Like, I'm curious.
I'm not a calm, subtle person. So I probably was freaking out a little bit. But so the live and flip saved us a little bit on that because we were able to do a cash out refi and get a lot of the debt that we had kind of accumulated from that education and the flip. We were able to kind of refi that off. So I wasn't freaking out in like we're going to go bankrupt because we have $50,000 in debt. And we also, my husband and I both had jobs at that point. So it wasn't that bad. I mean, that sounds terrible, right? $50,000 is a lot of money, but it wasn't like we're starving to death now because of it. And then my husband got medically separated from the Marine Corps in 2018 and he couldn't work anymore. He had a really bad back injury. And so we kind of decided, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he didn't really know what he wanted to do, couldn't work standing up. And so we just decided to move to Lincoln, Nebraska and kind of go for broke on real estate and make it work. We just backed ourselves in a corner and had to keep going.
Love it. Love it. So, how did you choose? So, you're in Nebraska, right? And then you start, was that, you said that flip, I thought you said it was in Albuquerque. Did I mishear that? Or was that in
Yeah. And
Nebraska?
I lived in Southern California and the flip was in Albuquerque. And then
Okay.
we decided to move to Lincoln, Nebraska to do real
Okay,
estate.
so you were just like, you know what, screw it, we're doing it in New Mexico, even though we don't live there. We're gonna try virtually flipping. Do you feel like that was part of it too? Like the fact you were virtually flipping, like do you still virtually flip? And if you do, what like recommendations do you have to other people to make it more successful for them?
Yeah. After that first one, I did not virtually flip after that. I really recognized that a lot of the issues that I had came from me not being there. It could have been solved from me being there. So when we got started or when we moved to Nebraska, it was because I wanted to be able to touch my projects. I wanted to be able to check up on them however often I needed to, or even like do some of the projects myself, which is probably not the best way of scaling your business, but I think it helps kind of save you a little bit and not get taken advantage of by contractors to be there. But yeah, so moving to Nebraska was more a feature of we wanted cash flowing rentals and we just couldn't find that in Southern California.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. So your main goal was buy and hold from the beginning, right? Like, do you like? I thought, yeah. I also saw you said you're mainly like a buy and hold investor now, correct?
Yeah, we probably hold like a third and flip or wholesale the rest of them.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So, what are your main markets right now?
Lincoln, Nebraska, and then the surrounding small towns around Lincoln.
Okay,
That's
so
it.
a lot in Nebraska. I love it. So you flip, wholesale, and buy and hold. What makes you want to do all three? Just most of the people I know usually primarily become wholesalers and then maybe own a few rentals and maybe do a few flips, or mainly do flipping, then they wholesale a few, buy and hold a few, mainly do buy and hold, and then wholesale and flip a little bit. What made you choose doing all three?
We kind of just do whatever we need to. I think you can kind of like either narrow down super specifically, like I am a wholesaler and I don't really have a market, or you can get really focused on a market like Lincoln and then say, I'm going to do whatever makes money makes sense at that time. And some of that is, going into that market, we didn't have jobs. So we didn't have like a fixed income. So there are times when you have to like, hey, I got to flip a house to make some money so I can put that money into this other rental. And so it just kind of depends on, whether you need money or whether you need cash flow at the time. And then being realtors, it's helpful that, we get the rents at the first of the month. We get flip profits, these big juicy flip profits kind of every month or every 2 months. And then as a realtor, we're closing maybe, 4 or 5 transactions a month. So you're getting that little sprinkle of income. And then we have the staging business. So you're getting that, weekly or multiple times a week income as well. It kind of really smooths out your income. I think a lot of people that are just flippers have these like big juicy profits and then nothing, and then big juicy profits and nothing. And it's a lot of like that feast or famine. And we wanted to smooth that out.
That totally makes sense to me. Yeah, like you don't know me as well. I'm mainly wholesale. I own a few rentals. I'm personally not a fan of flipping. I like wholesaling way more. I do it in California, so wholesaling checks can be as big as flip checks a lot of times, right? But I really like but I totally see what you mean. Like if I owned more rentals or if there was another thing too, it would be a little bit less feast or famine. I totally get that. So what are your goals? Like, I'm curious because you have so many different companies right now. Like, what are your goals for each company? Like, is there yeah, just like, what are your goals? What are you guys trying to get to?
So this year we wanted to bring on 20 more rental units and flip 10 houses. I think we'll probably flip 10 houses. That's done, but we won't hit that rental goal. But we brought on probably about 15 this year. It's just, add properties to our portfolio and then just keep flipping for income in all reality. I think I would like to get to a point where we're at like 50 to 100 rental units personally owned, and that would probably be enough if there is such a thing as enough.
I think that I have a feeling that could be enough, potentially, maybe. But I think you might be what you're getting at, though, is something that I talk to people a lot about, which is eventually you'll get to a point where you consider yourself even financially free, but then you just do it for the love of the game because the game is so fun, right? Just something I want to talk to the audience about real quick is just how fun the game getting deals, making them profitable, building the portfolio, and just how fun the game of real estate can become. And I think that's what you were alluding to right there, right? In the sense of even if you had 100 to 150 rentals, you probably wouldn't stop. You'd probably be like, why would I stop? Because the game itself is so fun. Can you talk about that? About like how important it is to be like having fun while you're doing this business? Because I think a lot of people stress themselves out about with like potentially losing money or things going wrong in the business because always something's going wrong at some point in the business, right? That's the nature of business. So talk real quick about like the importance of like making sure you're still having fun with it while you're doing the journey.
Yeah, so I love real estate. Like I could talk about it 24/7. My husband's not that way, right? He's like, shut it off. It's, work-life balance, all that. And I'm like, I love doing it. Like at some point, like you said, it becomes a game. And then it's just almost like a challenge or a Rubik's Cube where you're like, okay, maybe I have too much deal flow and not enough money, or I have too many deals and enough money and not enough contractors. And so it's always like this little Sudoku puzzle of how to put it all together and how to make it profitable for you, which I love. Like to me, it's a puzzle and it's super fun. So I think that even if I had like whatever quote, quote, enough is, I would still want to do the game. And I think too, when you're getting started, it's like pushing a train, right? Like at first you have to push on it so hard. And we worked 100-hour work weeks and we're just like killing ourselves trying to get it going. And then now, even if I stopped all my paid marketing and totally backed off the gas, deals would still come to me because I've made enough of a reputation that like, oh, I buy houses in Lincoln, Nebraska, people are just going to bring me houses. And so it's a lot easier, maybe not easier is the right word, but it can be put on autopilot a lot more once you kind of get it moving.
Do you think people are born with like that innate, like I just could talk about real estate all day? I'm like you. I could talk about real estate all day. I don't mind turning it off, but I could, if somebody wanted to talk to me about real estate, I would talk to them 24/7 if they felt like it. Do you think that's an innate thing where somebody like is just constantly wanting to do it? Or do you feel like that's something that's like learned or something you learn as you're doing the business?
I think as you win at something, it becomes like that much funner, and then you wanna talk about it more. If you were super sucky at real estate, you would stop talking about it pretty quick, you know? And
That's
so
fair.
some of that is a learned thing. You start doing it, you get good at it, you become passionate about it, people wanna talk to you more about it because you're the expert, and then it becomes fun. Yeah.
That makes sense. I love it. So this is something that I love talking to husband and wife couples a lot about. It might be a question you get a lot. You probably already know what I'm going to ask, which is like how is it being in business with your partner, right? Like how like does it make the relationship more stressful? Does it make it better? Like how do you navigate that because it's unorthodox, right? Definitely more people than not don't husbands and wives don't work together usually. But like how do you so for couples, what's your like advice? How do you feel like you can make that work?
Yeah, that's incredibly challenging. It is incredibly challenging. I would say that most people probably shouldn't do that. And I am like best friends with my husband, and so we make it work. And I love hanging out with him. I love working with him, but there is, different problems that arise because you are working together. And so there's always that like you don't want to micromanage the other person, but you wanna hold each other accountable, and it's a balancing act for sure, and then you have the dynamic of, like, when we go out on dates, we still just talk about work, and so it's hard to shut it off when you're married
Right.
to your business partner.
Gotcha. So what's your advice? Like, what do you feel like you should do? Like, that's really like that's good that you're going on dates. That's always good, right? But like
Yeah.
what activities, what like to-dos would you give to a couple that's watching this who's like going into business together? They're like, you know what, Megan, I know you said don't do it, but sorry, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
What would you say to be like, okay, but do at least this?
Yeah, so I would say to have very separate roles in your business, and then you know that you're responsible for one thing and the other person is responsible for one thing. So in our business, I'm responsible for like the design, the managing of the flip properties, managing of contractors, and then we kind of tag team acquisitions. That's the only one we a little bit share, but he's very much in charge of like all the realtor business and then all the tenant management, property management, so that we can go, okay, Jeff is responsible for this. I don't need to look at it ever. I don't need to really know what's going on there. I know he's got it handled. And then I'm responsible for all of the flips. And so he can know that I have that handled and he doesn't need to be checking up on me. So there's no drama that way. I think that's also helpful for when you start hiring employees. The employees, if you have very defined roles, know who to go to for which issue, or like contractors, we would have problems in the beginning where the contractors would go to Jeff and say like, "Oh, hey, I'm checking out for the day or I'm not going to be here or whatever." And he's like, "Oh, okay, sure, whatever, guy." But he doesn't really realize what's going on with the projects, how it affects other things in other projects. So they're kind of playing mommy daddy and kind of pitting each other against us. Now, all of our contractors know like if it has to do with a project, really, if it has to do with anything contractor related, they're coming to me, not to Jeff.
Gotcha. Okay. So separate the roles. That would be one
Mhm.
is separate the roles of who it is. And then probably like I'm curious if you know this book. Have you ever heard of Rocket Fuel before? You ever read that book?
I have bought it, but I haven't read it. Yep.
Read that book. That's the best partner book in general. It's how I learned I have a business partner. It's how we learned our separate roles and what they should be based on personality, right? How did you decide who's going to get what? Was it based on personality, what you guys are good at, what each person like? Like how did you decide that?
Yeah, probably what we're good at, what each person is like, kind of our I'm kind of more the visionary and big picture person. He is really good at doing. He was military, so he's good at taking orders and like doing that minutia day-to-day stuff that would just make me want to die. So he ends up having to do like all the boring stuff and I get to do the fun things like podcasts and Instagram and and all that. It just works for us.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, that's the same with my business partner. I'm the visionary. He's the integrator, is the name for it in Rocket Fuel. You'll like that book. If you bought it, keep reading. Actually, read it. You both
Yeah.
should read it. It's probably been the most revolutionary book for me and my business partner, understanding what the roles are supposed to be. Like something I might recommend because it would be based on that book is he's the day-to-day operations in every part, but then you're the visionary in every part. Read the book. I don't think I'll be able to explain exactly how it would work, but that's how you're going to be using your best talents in every single way, I think. But
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You guys are crushing it right now.
Thanks.
So, anyways, talking about social media a little bit, right? I mean, I found you on social media. You've been growing it. What inspired you to start growing your social media, doing podcasts, all that good stuff?
I started hanging out with Brandon Turner, and he was like, "You don't have an Instagram? What? You can't do business without an Instagram." So he made me create one right then. That was a few years ago. And I've kind of been growing it since. I think social media is just easy because, or, useful because you can put out to the world essentially and say, I need to hire someone, or I need a contractor, or I need whatever, and you can have other people bring that to you. And so I've been growing that kind of over the last couple years. Just see where it goes.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, in social media has revolutionized my business, right? I don't know how many people know this. The reason why I initially started this podcast was to just grow my social media. Now it's becoming a really good way of me networking with high level people, right? That's how I get to like have a conversation with Megan. I get to now like meet her, know her business, all that stuff, see what value I can bring her. And who knows, maybe we'll eventually do a deal together. I'd have to open up probably in Lincoln, Nebraska, but maybe she'll convince me it's the best market ever. I'm not sure. But either way, guys, I want you guys to know social media is insanely important. If you guys are not doing social media right now, you guys need to start. Like Megan, you can tell them what have been the benefits since you've started been doing social media. Like what's like you were talking about, you're able to find anybody. Have there been any benefits other than just finding people?
I get deals from my social media all the time. I get realtor clients. So I make money through social media a lot. I've also started doing like affiliate marketing stuff. And then I have a course that I sell through there, and we do like masterminds every once in a while, and you can just sell that instantly through social media. So it really just it helps for everything in your business.
Literally. I probably make an extra 20K in wholesale fees every single month just from social media, just people sending me random deals wherever it might be. Right, guys? So I'm just saying, guys, that this stuff is supremely important. So you didn't have an Instagram until you met Brandon Turner. Did you have any reservations about social media? Like, I mean, if you didn't even have an Instagram, you probably weren't a huge social media person in general. Do you have any
Yeah.
fears surrounding that?
Not so much fears, it's just a time commitment, right? So I had a Facebook page, and I had a Facebook for my Acorn Properties is my flipping business in Lincoln. And that had always been beneficial, but it was all very local. And I didn't really understand like the full effect that Instagram could have because I wasn't even on there watching what other people are doing. So it was really just like, is the juice going to be worth a squeeze? Is me putting all this time into growing a different platform like the Tatty Investor on Instagram? Is that going to be worth putting the time into it? But Brandon kind of convinced me that it would be, and I just do whatever he says to do.
Nice. So how'd you meet Brandon Turner? I mean, he's a huge guy, bigger pockets, obviously the face of bigger pockets. How'd you meet him?
Yeah, I went to one of his masterminds, like a Maui mastermind. It was a small group, like 30 people, and for like a week. So it was very cool, like intimate setting where we could really actually get to know each other instead of like a bigger pockets convention or like thousands of people.
Right. Talk about masterminds real quick, because I think probably one of the things that's made me so successful is I bet I'm like you in the sense that I'm willing to pay for masterminds. I'm willing to pay 20, 30 grand for a mastermind if I think it's going to be actually worth it, where I'm going to get an insane ROI on my investment. When do you think someone should do a mastermind? And yeah, let's just start there. When do you think like someone should do a mastermind in their business, or maybe even when should they pay for coaching or mentorship?
I think there is a huge return on masterminds. I absolutely love them. All of my big growth, I think, has happened because of going to masterminds. And a lot of times they're not that expensive. They're like $6 or $10,000. Some of them are very high level. It'd be like 50 grand, but when you're just getting started, that's not necessary. You can get one that's like under $10,000. But if you can do one extra deal because of going to that mastermind or because of something that you learn there or because of a connection that you make, it's so worth it with the ROI. As far as like when should someone start doing it, I think it depends. If you only have $6,000 to your name and you want to get started in real estate, I kind of feel like you probably shouldn't spend it on a mastermind. But if you have some money and you're valuing that education that people can connect you with, then I think it makes a lot of sense.
I love it. Well, Megan, got that. What do you have any last words before I shut off? You've been an amazing guest. I've been loving it. I love your story. Do
Yeah.
you have any last words?
Yeah, I think, with the fear thing, to get over the fear, a lot of times if you just go all the way down the rabbit hole of fear, it helps a ton, right? Like maybe say I'm scared that if I bought this house, then I would go bankrupt. Okay, well, what is the percentage, like probability that you actually would go bankrupt just from buying this one bad deal? Probably not that bad. And if that did happen, then what would you do? Well, I would have to get a job. Okay, well, then you'd be in the exact same position that you're in right now.
I love
And when
that.
you break it down and take that example and that fear way too far, then you realize it's probably not going to happen anyways. And if it did happen, would you be okay with that result? And the answer is probably yes. But if you take the opposite down the same rabbit hole and say, if I don't do it, if I never got started in real estate, am I okay with that? Am I okay with being on my deathbed and being like, man, I wish I would have gone full out. I wish I would have taken more risk. And instead, I just lived this like mediocre, simple life, which isn't a bad thing. Maybe that's what you want to do. But I think it's powerful to go all the way with those thoughts.
I love that. That's so true. I really like the idea of, okay, you go bankrupt. You're exactly where you would have been anyways. So does it really make that much of a difference? Maybe your credit would suck for 5 years. Is that worth chasing your dreams? And that's the worst possible case scenario. So I love that, Megan. You've been an amazing guest. Guys, next week, I'm going to be announcing this on my Instagram. Next week, I'm going to put myself back in as an acquisition manager. I've been announcing this over and over and over again. Go into my Instagram page and go to the link under my bio or in my bio. Click the first thing, the Act Manager Challenge, guys. You can sign up for the private Zoom there. You will see how I run my company, how I close deals. You'll see everything I do or everything my Act Managers do and everything I do, because there'll be still some like sales manager stuff I do every single day for 8 hours straight. We can start from 9:30 a.m. MST all the way till 6 p.m. MST. So guys, check that out. Megan, again, thank you so much for coming on here. We're
Thanks for having
out. We're out. Let's freaking go.